Susie, I was expecting you today to be wearing a leotard.
Bit chilly. Bit chilly for a leotard, but I know where you're going.
Leotard is an eponym. What does that mean?
Leotard is an eponym, and an eponym is essentially a word that originated in somebody's name.
Yeah. And we love it, you and I, the leotard, because we first met recording a television program in Britain, Countdown. And it's a words and numbers game, but very often the letters that are chosen at random seem to end up spelling the word leotard. So I think it became the most popular eponym ever.
One of the most popular, and one of those that was guaranteed to make the then host Richard Whiteley guffaw with laughter and throw his hands up in joy. So it's got very special memories for me.
So a leotard is named after the gymnast, tightrope walker.
Yes, the trapeze artist, Jules Léotard.
Jules Léotard. Was he a Frenchman?
He was French. Sorry, that's terrible. I never put on a fake French accent, and that one was particularly bad. Yes, he was. Now, he was the original... what was it? The daring young man on the flying trapeze.
Oh.
He was the inspiration for that. Yes, so he developed the art of the trapeze. That is probably what he should be best known for. But because he loved that one-piece gym wear, that now bears his name.
That's fantastic. So he's given his name to the language, the leotard.
Yes.
There's the Wellington boot, of course, named after the Duke of Wellington. My favourites are undoubtedly the Hungarian Laszlo Biro, also pronounced Biro, who invented the ballpoint pen, the American William Hoover, who was the guy who pioneered the vacuum cleaner, the Hoover. But my favourite is another Frenchman, the Frenchman who designed the first sandals suitable for the beach, Philippe Fallope. Philippe Fallope, Philippe Fallope, Philippe Fallope. I love it, I love it, I love it. But the others are real.
The others are real. Just while you were making jokes about flip-flops, I was thinking about modern eponyms, because there aren't actually that many. You were talking about the Hoover, there's of course Dyson. But you wouldn't necessarily say, well, yeah, I suppose you might, but I'll get the Dyson out. It's a bit pretentious to say that possibly still. So it's quite interesting. I'm not sure how many modern eponyms I can think of. I know for a while doing Adelia went into the dictionary. So if you were following a particular recipe, you would do Adelia. And also I remember distinctly hearing someone say, "Ooh, it's a bit Tarantino around here."
Oh, a bit Tarantino, meaning it's a bit...
Sinister, feels a little bit sinister, a bit of a loaded atmosphere. But I haven't heard that again. So it's sort of, I'm a celebrity, get me in the dictionary. It's not really working so far.
But are eponyms significant? Are they important?
Well, they are, because I think for any lover of words and any lover of English, they tell so many fascinating stories, and we pass them by, like, you know, so often. And we don't sort of investigate their history. So you might hear about a crane, for example, called a derrick.
Oh, derrick.
Yeah, sort of hoisting.
D-E-R-R-I-C-K.
Yes, you might see it on board a ship, etc. But you may not know that actually, there was a once notorious Elizabethan hangman who was called Mr. Derrick, and he essentially was obviously such a sort of black figure in the popular imagination that it became used generically for a gallows, and then by extension for anything that was sort of a hoist. So pretty dark history, that one. Before we go any further, you are listening to Something Rhymes with Purple with me, Susie Dent, and Gyles Brandreth sitting opposite me.
We are sitting face to face, and we're talking eponyms.
We are.
Is the Mars bar an eponym?
No, I don't think it is. I think there were a lot of planetary chocolates, weren't there? Milky Way, Galaxy, etc.
Ah,
was
I
that
got
Mr.
you.
Mars?
Got you.
Was
Got
there?
you. Got you.
I have no idea.
Mars, you may have to check this. I think Mars is called Mars not because of the planets at all. I think Mars is called Mars because Mr. Mars was the person who had the chocolate company.
Well, you
and
may
he
well be
named
right.
the bar after himself.
Okay.
So take a look at that one.
I am typing Mars bar eponym. Okay, hang on. Yes, Forrest Mars Sr. in Slough in 1932. I had no idea that Slough was famous for the Mars bar either. You were correct. That is an eponym. I had no idea.
Well, let's do a little bit of a quiz. I hope we can do that. Have you got a list of eponyms there?
Yes, I have got some for you. Okay.
Let's see if I can guess them and see if people listening to the podcast can get them before we can.
All right. What about silhouette?
Silhouette, yes. This is a Frenchman, I think, something to do with the French Revolution. And he would cut out images of people before they were beheaded during the French Revolution. Gustave Silhouette.
Interesting. I hadn't heard that particular side of the story. No, he was called Etienne de Silhouette.
Etienne de Silhouette.
More bad French accents. And he, there's two theories. He was the finance minister, apparently, and loved austerity. Sound familiar? And he essentially was well into political economising. So one theory is that people and their money became a shadow of their former self. So that's one theory.
So he wasn't he didn't actually cut out silhouettes
well, that's the
himself.
other theory, is that he himself actually loved making silhouettes. I haven't heard the sort of silhouettes of his victims, though, because I don't think he was an executioner.
No.
Directly, anyway.
But rather like Madame Tussaud, who genuinely, I think, would take images of people's heads after they'd just been executed, do a wax model of them.
Yeah, she did, yeah.
I thought the silhouette was down there by the tumbrils as the heads were falling off with his scissors doing little profiles.
No, I don't know, because he was the finance minister, so I doubt that he was sitting there unless he was incredibly bloodthirsty.
But this is interesting.
But this is why, you see, this is why it's so fascinating, because there's still so much detective work to be done.
Lovely. So we've got Etienne de Silhouette, who gave us the silhouette. Give us another one.
Yeah, okay, this is one of my favourites.
What do I get for that out of 5? Do I get 2 points?
You get a cup of tea.
Thank you.
Maverick.
This is American.
It's one of my favourite stories.
Well, tell us the story then, because
Okay.
I loosely remember it, but get it right.
Okay, well, this is a 19th century cattle owner called Samuel Maverick, and he became famous for refusing to brand his cattle, which was obviously the done thing. Again, sort of, lots of theories, but it's thought that his cattle just sort of wandered free, much to the annoyance of his neighbours. And because he didn't do things the prescribed way, and was seen as a little bit eccentric, if not downright stubborn, he became known as a maverick. And, interesting, I think it was his son or his nephew, I think it was his son, gave us the word gobbledygook.
Good grief.
Yes.
Oh, but what a
Yeah,
family the
what a
Mavericks
family.
were.
I
No,
know.
you must explore this. I love it.
Well, he wasn't called Gobbledygook, obviously, but he just thought that that's...
What a great name.
He thought that sounded like the sort of meaningless babble of geese. And so he said it sounds like gobbledygook.
And this was young Maverick.
Yeah, this was Maverick Jr.
Maverick Jr. gave us gobbledygook.
Yeah.
Some people think, why am I? Shouldn't I be living a life here? Couldn't I be reading a book? Why am I listening to a podcast? Now you know. Now you know. Maverick was a cowboy who wouldn't brand his cattle, but he bred a son, and the son gave us the word gobbledygook. This has been worth getting up this morning. You live and learn. Then, of course, you die and forget it all. But in the interim, how pleased you must be to be listening to Something Rhymes with Purple with Susie Dent and Gyles Brandreth. Challenge me to another.
Okay.
Though I know nothing, I'm loving your answers.
Well, this is one perhaps for slightly older listeners, because I'm not sure it's used that much these days.
Slightly older listeners. Both Susie and I are on tour at the moment doing stage shows, and we're going to a lot of the same theatres. My show is called Break a Leg. And what is your show called?
Mine's called The Secret Life of Words.
The Secret Life of Words. And she is revealing the secret life of words like Maverick and Gobbledygook. But on the tickets, it often says, age, 16 plus or 12 plus.
Yes.
Does it say anything like that on your tickets?
Well, it has to be... Yes, it has to be 18 plus, because there's a little bit of swearing in there. I do the history of swearing. We've done swearing, haven't we?
We have? Oh,
So,
yeah. Oh,
yeah,
fuck me, we have. We certainly have.
I do
So it
turn
says
the able
18
a little
plus.
bit. I think it says 18 plus or the equivalent of PG.
18 plus. Well, rather amusingly, wherever I was the other day, my wife said, have you seen the tickets? What it said on the tickets. I thought, is it going to be 12 plus? Is it going to be 14 plus? 60 plus. And when I looked out at my audience, they all were.
Oh,
So
I like that.
you now say we've got something for older,
Possibly for
podcasters.
older
Go on.
listeners. Hobson's Choice.
Yes, Hobson's Choice. There is a play of that name
Okay.
by Harold Brighouse.
Mm-hmm.
Rather a wonderful play, which I saw performed at the National Theatre shortly after it opened in the 1960s with Sir Michael Redgrove playing the part of
Oh,
Hobson.
amazing.
There is a film version of this play with Charles Laughton in the role.
He did Galileo.
He's a
He's
great.
one of my heroes.
He is a heroic actor.
Yes.
But I imagine Hobson's Choice is called Hobson's Choice because the phrase already existed. Nothing to do with the Hobson Jobson.
No, nothing to do with the Hobson-Jobson dictionary. Well, let's explain. Hobson's choice essentially means the option of taking the one thing offered or nothing. So it's kind of all or nothing.
Oh, rather like some people would have said that what was on offer from the European Union over the Brexit negotiations was a Hobson's Choice.
Yes, there's no choice at all, essentially.
There's no Hobson's Choice. And
Yes.
who was Hobson?
Well, he was Tobias Hobson. So he was a Cambridge carrier who let out horses, and he is said to have insisted that his customers take the horse which happened to be next to the stable door because they were the freshest, or to go without. And so it became that became known as Hobson's choice. You
And it's
had
actually-
to take that horse.
It's like London cabs to this day.
Yeah,
They make
take
you
the
go
first
to
one
the
in the
one at the first one in the queue. It's
Quite
a Hobson's choice. You haven't, even if you don't like the look of the first one, you want the second one. No, Hobson's choice. So he was called Tobias Hobson.
He was called Tobias Hobson.
I
Indeed.
mentioned Hobson Jobson.
Yes.
Who was Hobson Jobson?
Well, he produced the Anglo-Indian Dictionary, didn't he? I don't actually know who he was.
Hobson Jobson,
you
and
will know.
it's like a turn of phrase. Or Hobson Jobson. There probably wasn't a Jobson. It's just it comes from.
Yes, Henry Yule and Arthur Coke Burnell. Why it was called Hobson Jobson? In Anglo-Indian English, it referred to any festival or entertainment. It is a corruption, we think, by British shoulders of Yah Hussein. I'm not sure I'm repeating this properly, but it was repeatedly chanted by the Shia Muslims as they mourned and beat their chests.
Oh, wonderful.
Ooh.
A sound like
There you
Hobson
go.
Jobson. Hobson Jobson.
Yes.
Hobson Jobson.
Anyway, this was not exactly an eponym, but fascinating nonetheless. I love our little diversions.
I love a diversion. Life is a series of cul-de-sacs, but then you
Yes.
hit the main road, and eventually you hit the buffers. Okay, give me one more. I'm liking this.
Okay, this is an obvious one, but I love it anyway. Caesarean section.
Caesarean section, named after Julius Caesar, the
Yes.
Roman geezer,
Yes.
had a nose like a lemon squeezer.
Did he?
Well, when I was at school, there was a poem that went along those lines. Julius Caesar, Roman geezer, squashed his nose in a lemon squeezer, something like that. Anyway,
It probably didn't happen one with the other. I wouldn't worry too much.
Julius Caesar, was he born by caesarean section?
That's the folk belief. I have to say that is what the OED believes as well, that he himself was delivered this way. And of course, it was made famous by Shakespeare.
For those who have led sheltered lives, what exactly is a caesarean section?
A caesarean section is childbirth whereby the baby is delivered through an incision into the womb, I think, rather than...
They cut you open to bring the
Naturally, they
baby
cut you
out.
open, yes.
And you mentioned Shakespeare's play,
Mm-hmm.
which is known as the Scottish play because it's supposed to be bad luck to say the word Macbeth. It's supposed to be bad luck to say the title of the play unless you're actually in the play at the time. And in the one of the prophecies of the witches is that he won't be killed. He can't be killed except by anyone who is by mother born or something.
He was untimely ripped.
And he
That's
was
Macduff, isn't it?
untimely ripped from
his mother's womb.
Yeah, exactly. And so he does end up. Macbeth does end up being killed. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Caesarean section. That's good. One more.
Okay, a Mickey Finn.
A Mickey Finn. It's an eponym, is it? I suppose if there was a real Mickey Finn.
Yes. Well, it's said to be a notorious Chicago bartender who drugged and robbed his customers.
Oh, it's a very strong drink. It knocks you
Yes.
out. I'll have a Mickey Finn.
Yes, I think be careful with that one.
Next.
This is an area that I'm fascinated by, but I'm not sure they fall strictly into the category of being pure eponyms because people have lent their names to expressions, but we don't know who they were. So, not on your Nelly. That's
Not
a
on your
really
Nelly.
old-fashioned British expression, meaning
Lying-
not on your life.
Yeah, not on your
Yes.
life. Not on your Nelly.
Not on your Nelly. In the 19th century, Nelly Duff was rhyming slang for puff. So not on your puff was like not on your breath of life, not on your life. So it's a fairly complicated bit of rhyming slang. But we don't know who Nelly Duff was, sadly.
Oh.
I mean,
okay.
indeed, maybe she didn't exist. Likewise, I just add to that one in terms of who people who are now anonymous, sadly, although they live on through language, was somebody called Tommy Grant. Tommy Grant became a nickname in Australia for an immigrant, notably British immigrants, and that in turn became Pommy Grant because people arriving in on the Australian shores, if they were British, particularly and fair-skinned, would be as red as a pomegranate. So it became Pommy Grant, and finally
So the
it ended up as
Poms-
Poms. Yes.
Oh, but that is this. Susie Dent, you are on fire, if I may say so. I never knew that the origin of the pom, being, as it were, the Brit who goes to Australia, came from pomegranate, which came from Tommy Grant.
Tommy Grant.
Tommy Grant gives you pomegranate, gives you the pom.
Yes. Not an acronym for Prisoner of Her Majesty's Service because of deportees. But yes, lovely story.
What I'm interested in are the words that have slipped into the language, like silhouette and leotard, where there is no clue in the word that it was once a person.
I'll give you
I
one.
find that mesmerising.
Okay. Oh, very nice. Franz Mesmer.
Who was he?
Well, he gave us the sort of precursor to hypnotism, really, because he believed in an invisible natural force, a kind of animal magnetism that exists in all of us. And he saw in it sort of amazing healing properties. But I think by some countries even, he was seen as a bit of a quack. And so had to sort of move on in order to practice elsewhere, as far as I remember.
But it's extraordinary, I think, to be somebody who lived maybe 150 years ago, whose name has just entered the language. People talk about somebody being mesmeric,
Yes.
mesmerising a moment. It's a phenomenon.
I've got one for you as well.
Oh, yes.
Nicotine. Do you know where that one comes from?
That does ring a bell. Nicotine.
Yes.
François de Nicotine.
He was essentially a French diplomat who lived in very late 16th century. Jean Nicot, he was called. He was an ambassador to Lisbon, but he is famous because he became convinced of the healing powers of tobacco from a friend of his who was a botanist. And apparently the application of the tobacco plant worked absolute wonders. They tried it on tumours, etc., and it was wonderful. Catherine de Medici, the Queen of France, treated her migraines with it, etc. So nicotine was found, or tobacco was found to be this sort of how different, amazingly therapeutic plant.
But this is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, there we are. Nicotine. People thought it was a wonderful cure-all when it began, and this man has given his name to nicotine. In the First World War, and I believe in the Second World War too, they gave cigarettes to the soldiers, didn't they? For health reasons, to calm them down, to soothe them.
It's a panacea as well. Yes.
Here's a cigarette, and it's obviously a killer. Well, speaking of which, when I bought my car last, I only buy a car once in a generation, because I'm very caring of the environment. So once in a generation, I buy a car. When I last bought a car, we were being told to buy diesel cars because diesel fuel was good for the planet.
Yes.
And now I'm being told I did this for the sake of my country, and now I'm going to be punished for buying a diesel car. But Diesel was a person, wasn't he?
Yes. Was it Rudolf? Rudolf Diesel.
I think he was the red-nosed reindeer.
He was a German engineer, Rudolf Diesel, who famously, I think, died mysteriously by falling from a ship. He disappeared from a ship. That's my memory. I may be wrong. So do please correct us to anyone who's listening to Something Rhymes with Purple, because we would love to hear from you.
We would, actually. Do let us know. I mean, I say we'd love to hear from them. Do we want to hear from them? Do we want to deal with correspondence?
We do. I do.
Oh, fine. So if you don't mind, email Susie Dent, whatever, or text her, or what's the other thing that people do now?
Tweet.
Tweet.
Me.
Tweet. I meant tweet. I'm on Twitter. I'm at Gyles B1. At Gyles B1. Gyles B1. Are you on Twitter?
Yes, I'm at Susie_Dent.
But we should really be on Instagram or something, shouldn't we?
I don't really do pictures.
Oh, don't you?
We're being hurried along by the producer.
He's a bit of a dunce.
He's not a dunce. Paul is not a dunce. But
where does the word dunce come from?
Scotus,
yeah.
Duns Scotus, who
was Duns Scotus?
He was a friar who was actually probably incredibly bright and slightly ahead of his times, but he was a reformer. And was he a reformer or was he an anti-reformer? He sounds like you know more than me. But his philosophies were seen as being foolish and heretical.
Thank
you.
He was a friar, a theologian. Some people considered him a fool, Duns Scotus, and people talked about a dunce.
Yes.
What about gerrymandering? Let's get a couple of these in.
Yes, gerrymander. It's a combination of the name, sort of top of my head, Elbridge Gerry, and the salamander. It was also to do with dividing districts, voting districts, in a sort of slightly unfair way.
A Victorian expression, I think, or maybe a little bit earlier, where you fiddled with the constituency to have certain people vote for you. You basically were indulging in gerrymandering. Mm-hmm. So the man who was doing this was Elbridge Gerry. And salamander...
he came up with a new sort of division of counties that apparently, when drawn on a map, looked a bit like a salamander.
One of my favourites, of course, was Amelia Bloomer.
Oh, yes.
because people do give their names to clothes, don't they?
Yes.
Like jeans come from
Genoa.
Genoa,
Yes.
in Italy. And
Denim
comes from Nîmes, the place. N-I with a little hat on the I.
Those are toponyms, those.
Those are toponyms.
Yes.
But Bloomer is Amelia Bloomer, and that's a proper eponym. Who was she?
She was a blue stocking, wasn't she, as well?
Could be.
Yes.
I thought she was a feminist pioneer.
Maybe she was feminist.
And she liked to ride a bicycle. And in order to ride a bicycle in skirts, it's quite difficult. So she pioneered wearing these sort of trousers, loose-fitting trousers that became named after her, bloomers.
And she advocated temperance above all as well as women's rights, quite right.
As you would if you're riding a bicycle, because you don't want people falling off the bicycle.
I guess that is true. Gyles, if you had to contribute your name to the English language, what would its definition be?
A Brandreth. What would a Brandreth be? Well, can I tell you something? I would like it to be something gentle and lovely. I have a friend called Anthony Holden, who is a very distinguished journalist and biographer. And we were at university together, and he's a brilliant man. And recently, maddeningly, he suffered a stroke, and which has debilitated him. He's now in a wheelchair, and he can't use his left arm or left leg. But his mind is razor sharp, and he can use his right hand, so he can still carry on writing, tapping away on the computer. But he was saying to me how the way we use words is so important. And that's why you and I actually love words. And he said, the word stroke. He said, actually, the word stroke is a gentle word. It's a loving word. You associate it with a caress. You stroke somebody on the cheek. You stroke them on the hand. It's a beautiful word, a gentle word. And he said, what happened to me, the stroke, was anything but beautiful or gentle. And he said, we call a heart attack. And actually a stroke is a kind of brain attack. Let's call it a brain attack.
I mean, if you think of it, it's an act of striking. So its etymology is fairly hard and aggressive.
But the idea of stroking is gentle. So the point is that we give meaning to words by the way in which we use them. And so you can get a word like stroke, which can at one hand mean something beautiful and gentle, and at the other hand means something really quite frightening and alarming. So that leads me to Brandreth. When I was a boy, I'm afraid people used to say bad breath Brandreth, to be rude.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like that at all. So I want a Brandreth to be the word for something that lingers in the air. Oh, he left a lovely... I'm laughing now. He left a lovely Brandreth after him. A faint echo.
That's nice.
A Brandreth.
Like a sort of slight... sort of particles of perfume that is somehow sort of left behind. I like that.
The spirit of the person. A delightful...
Yeah.
Oh, there was something about them. Oh, he left a lovely Brandreth behind him.
I like that. Very nice.
So what will Dent be?
Thanks. Well, yes, as you can tell, Dent is never going to sound poetic. I think if I could donate my name to the English language, it will probably be as a synonym for linguistic gap, because linguistic gap is a bit of a mouthful. So for all those sensations, feelings, emotions, even things for which we have no word in English, I'd like to donate my name to that. So it might be behind a new dictionary of new words for things that we never had words for before. That's what I'd like it to be.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah.
We're still searching for the word that it could be. Oh, I like that very much.
Do you know, I've also just then made up a word, plentyfold, which doesn't exist.
Plentyfold?
The only excuse I have is that today is my first real day of hay fever, and I am drugged to the eyeballs with some very sedating pills. So please forgive me if I get my words wrong.
That's
Which
okay.
is not important, of course, on a word podcast.
Well, it is important to get it right. Oh, I see what you mean. You were being sarcastic now.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Now, look, even though you are woozy
Yes.
and drugged up to the eyeballs, I still need, because many people tune in simply to get to this last bit where you give us Susie's trio. 3 words to surprise us, 3 words that we want to relish and take away as our takeaway. What do people call that when you go to a conference and they say, we'd like you to give the people something What do they call it?
Yeah, takeaway messages. And
Takeaway messages. Well, what are the takeaway words?
Instantly disposable, that's what these are. But they are great words. They don't really have anything to do with eponyms, I have to say. They're just 3 words that I like. One is a Victorian word for an umbrella, which is a bumbershoot.
A bumbershoot.
Yes.
I love it. How does bumbershoot come up?
With you? I think just bumber because it sounds a little bit like a child's representation of umbrella, and a shoot as in parachute, I guess, although it's spelled SHOOT. I guess it's shaped like a parachute. So I like that, a bumbershoot. My second word, just because it's so beautiful, we've been mentioning quite a few French words today, is chatoyant. Chatoyant. I guess it would be chatoyant in English, which you really don't want because it doesn't sound nearly so nice. So it's CHATOYANT. And it means of iridescent, shimmering lustre, like a cat's eye in the dark.
I like that.
I just think it's a beautiful word. And my third one, cannot accuse you of this, but we can accuse many politicians of it, I think, is Battology. Heard of that one?
No, what is Battology?
Battology is needless and tiresome repetition in speaking or writing. So loathsome repetition is Battology.
Battology, banging on, Battology.
Yes, if something is battological, it's really tediously repetitive.
Do you think it's affected you being called Susie Dent as a person? Because I think there is research that shows that people's names do affect how they behave. I'm sure.
Nominative determinism.
Is that what it means?
Yeah, well, you might have an aptronym if you were
like there's a judge called Judge.
Yes.
You know, and the famous cardinal of Milan was called, of Manila was called Cardinal Sin. But he behaved himself. But people's names do often lead to...
Yes, I can't say that happened to me.
But Susie Dent...
It's not great.
And Brandreth isn't great, actually. It's a dreadful name. I met Roy Rogers when I was a little boy. You know who I mean by Roy Rogers?
Remind me.
Roy Rogers was a cowboy.
Okay.
And he was a hugely famous cowboy. And he had a horse called, was his horse called Trigger?
Oh, okay, yes.
Does it ring a bell? Anyway, I discovered when I met him that his real name was Leonard Sly. And I thought, oh, this is so disappointing. I mean, you know, he called himself when he began as a cowboy, Dick Weston, which wasn't a bad name. And then somebody said he was the Ginger Rogers of the cowboy scene. So he changed his name to Roy Rogers. And he had 10 children, 2 boys and 8 girls. There was Roy Jr., and there was John. There was Robin, Cheryl, Linda, Lou, Marion, Scottish Ward, Mary, Little Doe, and Deborah Lee. Names do make a difference. You know, have you got children, haven't you?
I do.
Have they got simple names?
Quite simple. Lucy. That's
I like that. Lucy meaning light?
Light from lux, yes, in Latin.
Lux. You say lux from Latin. People think of it as a soap. She's named after a soap suds. Lucy?
And Thea.
Thea?
Yes.
Thea. Thought that he had not got a lisp.
She doesn't have a lisp, no.
Well, because I say that. I have a daughter called Scythrid.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yes.
Never mind
what does
Thea.
That mean?
Scythrid. Scythrid was the daughter, I think, of King Anna, the king of the East Angles.
Yeah, it sounds Anglo-Saxon.
My wife came up with all these names for our children. So we have Scythrid, we have Bennett, B-E-1-N-E-T, as he says, who wants to spend their whole life going around being called Benet, and Afra, A-P-H-R-A.
Gosh,
which is a great name.
Fancy names.
Afra is a great name. Afra Ben, B-E-H-N, was the first woman to earn her living as a writer.
Excellent. Excellent. Like that.
Anyway, we've had a lot of fun, haven't we?
We have. Thank you so much for listening to our meanderings. I would just say, if you have enjoyed this, please spread the word. That would mean a lot to us. So give us a review or rate us.
And if you didn't like it, fuck off. Who makes all this?
This is a Something Else production. Funny you should mention that. Produced by Paul Smith.
Paul Smith, can you imagine being called Paul Smith all your life? Paul Smith.
Great clothes maker.
Great clothes maker. And also the man who produced Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is called Paul Smith.
Oh, really? And let's not forget Russell Finch.
Russell Finch.
Steve
Who
Ackerman.
Wants to Be Called Russell Finch? At
and
a pinch,
Josh
it's Finch.
Gibbs.
Steve Ackerman. Josh Gibbs, that isn't bad. Named after a toothpaste.
And Gully. Let's not forget Gully.
Who's Gully?
Gully is there in the studio, just over there, through the glass.
People may feel
Short
they're rather...
for Gulliver, which is just the best name ever.
Some people listening to this may feel that to have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people behind the microphone,
overkill?
2 in front of the microphone, is overkill. We may be talking about the origins of roadkill next time.